G'day guys, my name's Nick and this is Nutrition. Have you ever wondered how to construct a post-workout meal and how important it really is? Well, I was asked this exact question at a conference earlier this year and here's my answer.
So, Nick, before we jumped on this talk, we had a little bit of a discussion about what is essentially post-workout protein, post-workout nutrition. So, we touched a little bit on protein feedings. Maybe, probably for those people who are watching now that didn't catch that, maybe we go over that again. But also, then, what about just post-workout nutrition in general, carbs, fats, as well as protein and things like that? How should people approach it after training to make the most amount of gains possible?
To start with, if you don't have anything before training, so if you come in fasted or it's been a long time since your last feeding, then post-workout nutrition is far more important. But if we take out the fasting and look at it just from a normal meal frequency and where do you fit your training into that, so what is optimal for your protein feedings is to have between 2.5 hours to 4 hours between the last time you had, that dose of protein that Mark just spoke about, that 0.3 if it's whey, up to 0.5 if it's a mixed meal, grams per kilo of body weight. And you should be having that, at those distances between 2.5 all day, every day, basically, unless you're sleeping. That is completely optimal for muscle gain. So if you were doing that, your post-workout meal would just be the next meal. But generally, should you have more protein in your post-workout? No. Like, if you're already following the, protein and protein frequency, protein amount and protein frequency for optimal muscle gain, which is what we're talking about here, then you don't need to increase that more. There's no further benefit from increasing the amount of protein you're taking in. So if you're already doing that and you're putting your workout in the middle of 2 meals, you don't even need to think about post-workout nutrition. It's just happening. If you are coming in fasted or it's been a while since the meal before, like maybe you planned on working out 90 minutes after your last meal, but something got in the way and now it's been an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, then yeah, you might need to prioritize your post-workout nutrition a little more. That could mean that you get protein in pretty quickly. You might want a faster digesting source if you really want to. It doesn't make that much of a difference. But again, as Mark already alluded to, if you're having whey, for example, the total amount of protein you would need is less than if you're having a mixed meal. So get in the same amount of protein you have in any other meal, which is between 0.3 if it's whey, grams per kilo body weight, and 0.5 if it's a mixed meal, in your normal meal frequency. If you don't have a normal meal frequency, then try and get it in about 90 minutes of training, unless you haven't eaten before. That would be my best advice. As far as carbs and fats, so when you train, you generally deplete muscle glycogen. So your body is going to try and replenish that. So if you can get in some carbohydrates in your post-workout meal as well, you will replenish that muscle glycogen from the meal you've just eaten. Maybe fully replenished, maybe not, depending on how much carbohydrate you've had in your meal and depending on how much muscle glycogen you've depleted. But by getting some carbohydrates in there, you're giving your muscle a chance to start that replenishment and recovery procedure pretty quickly. If you were to recover low, which means you don't introduce carbohydrates very soon, there are some benefits to that. But if your goal is muscle gain, it's probably not a benefit you're after. We're talking about cellular, I can't even think of the words. Basically, the cells get better. But if you're aiming for muscle gain, which is what we're talking about here, if you get some carbohydrates in that post-workout meal, you are going to be on the road to replenishing the glycogen, which means you can train again with that muscle sooner, and recovering sooner, which means, again, you can train with that muscle sooner. And as you probably heard in the physique development talk earlier, frequency can play a big part in your hypertrophy.
Now, obviously that clip was part of a much larger talk, so there are some things that during the talk were provided context that haven't been in that clip. So if you're unsure about anything to do with protein, you can check out this video here. Now you'll notice that at the end there, I didn't say anything about fat, and that's because, in my opinion, fat doesn't really have a place in a post-workout meal. It has a place in your diet, but fat generally slows down the digestion process, and that includes the digestion of carbohydrates and protein. And getting those nutrients in pretty quickly after training, especially if you haven't eaten beforehand, is kind of important. So in most cases, I would include very minimal fat in a post-workout meal. If you want to know anything else about muscle gain in the human body, you can check out this video here. Otherwise, thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions or require any more explanation, please feel free to hit me up in the comments below. I'm pretty much always responding to every comment that goes there. If you have any ideas for future videos or anything you want me to cover, they can also go down there as well. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like me, please consider subscribing. Until next time, I've been Nick, this has been Nicktrition, and if no one's told you today, you have a nice butt.